Welcome to Life Stories, Betrayal, Resilience, and Justice. Today's story has it all. Imagine waking up in a hospital, unable to move, only to overhear your husband and closest confidant plotting your death. That's exactly what happened to Olivia Carter, a self-made businesswoman who built an empire, only to discover that the people she trusted most were trying to steal everything from her, including her life. But Olivia wasn't about to give up. How did she outsmart them? How did she fight back? Stay tuned to find out. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's incredible journey. Pain. That was the first thing I became aware of. A deep, dull ache that radiated through my body like a distant storm rolling in. Slow and inevitable. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, and even the thought of opening them sent a wave of exhaustion through me. Somewhere beyond the darkness, I heard faint beeping, steady, rhythmic, the sound of medical monitors, the soft murmur of voices, shoes squeaking against the hospital floor. I wasn't dead. Memories drifted back in jagged fragments. I had been driving home after a long day at the dealership. My phone had rung. Ryan, my husband, sounding panicked about an emergency at the office. I remembered gripping the wheel, my heart pounding as he spoke urgently, telling me I needed to come quickly. And then, the brakes. I had pressed down, expecting the car to slow. But instead, the vehicle surged forward, the helpless moment of realization. The sickening feeling of acceleration instead of control. The guardrail had come too fast. Then, the plunge. Now I was here, alive, but something was terribly wrong. My body wouldn't respond to my mind's desperate commands. I couldn't even open my eyes. Then the door opened. How is she today? It was Ryan's voice. Warm, familiar, my husband of 8 years. Relief washed over me. He was here. I wasn't alone. No change. Mr. Carter, a female voice responded. Likely a nurse. The doctor will be in shortly to discuss her condition. Thank you, Ryan said. There was something strained in his voice. Grief? Worry? My heart ached at the thought of what he must be going through. The nurse left, the door closing softly behind her. Then, before I could process anything else, another voice spoke, a woman's voice. She's still out? The tone was hushed, intimate, completely unconscious. Ryan replied, and his voice had changed. No longer tense with concern, but lighter, almost relieved. So our plan worked, the woman whispered, amusement in her voice. Then came a soft, breathy giggle. My mind froze. That voice, Madison, my assistant, a woman who had worked for me for 3 years. Someone I had trusted with my schedule, my business, and, foolishly, my confidence. The brake failure worked even better than we expected, Ryan said, and now there was no mistaking it, the casual ease in his tone. As though they were discussing the weather. Now, we just wait for nature to take its course. A rustle of fabric, the unmistakable sound of a kiss. You're brilliant, Ryan. I knew you could pull it off. My heart pounded so loudly I feared the monitor beside me would betray me. A metallic taste filled my mouth as bile rose in my throat. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Careful, Ryan murmured, and I could practically hear the smirk in his voice. Even like this, she's still causing trouble. How long do we have to wait? Madison asked, impatience bleeding through her words. Not long. I've already spoken to her lawyers. With her in this condition, as her husband, I get control of everything. The dealerships, the properties, her accounts, all of it. And once you have control? Madison pressed. Then we have a tragic conversation with the doctors about quality of life. Ryan's voice turned cold, detached. She never wanted to be kept alive by machines. I'll make sure her wishes are honored. They laughed together, light, carefree. The sound of it felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I wanted to scream, to claw my way out of this frozen state and throw the truth in their faces. But I couldn't move. My body had betrayed me as much as they had. I still can't believe how easy it was. Madison mused. I could hear her heels clicking against the floor as she moved around the room. A simple phone call about an emergency at the office. And she rushed to the bridge like we knew she would. The mechanic I paid did excellent work. Cut the brake line just enough to fail when she needed it most. The accident. It hadn't been an accident at all. My own husband had tried to kill me. Was still trying to kill me. And the woman I had hired, paid generously, and trusted, she had helped him. Do you think anyone suspects anything? Madison asked. Who would? Ryan scoffed. Everyone knows we were the perfect couple. A pause. Then, quieter, more bitter, he added, only you and I know what a cold, controlling woman she really was. Always working, always expanding the business, treating me like I was just another employee rather than her husband. Another pause. Then, a soft, wicked chuckle from Madison. Well, soon you'll have all her money without having to deal with her anymore. I wanted to wail, to weep, but the tears wouldn't come. Ryan sighed dramatically. Vanessa is much better suited to be my wife anyway. She understands what a woman's role should be. And she's 10 years younger than Olivia. I heard the sound of a drawer opening. Looking for these? Ryan asked. A delighted squeal from Madison. Her diamond earrings. The ones she never let me borrow. Do you mind if I? They're yours now, baby. Everything of hers is ours now. I felt a presence close to my bed. Madison's perfume filled my senses. Sickly sweet. I always knew I'd look better in these anyway. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I would not open my eyes. I would not let them know I was conscious. I would stay silent, still. Because if Ryan discovered I was awake, he would find another way to finish what he had started. And this time, he would make sure I didn't survive. The next morning, the door to my hospital room opened again. I remained still, my breathing even, my body limp, every fiber of my being screamed to move, to run, but I forced myself to stay frozen. I had no choice. If I reacted too soon, Ryan would know, and he would finish what he started. A new voice spoke, calm and professional. Good morning, Mrs. Carter. I'm Dr. Patel. I'll just be checking your vitals. His hands were gentle as he adjusted the monitors, checking my pulse, making notes on his clipboard. His touch was different from the others, focused, precise, but not indifferent. He was alone. This might be my only chance. Slowly, carefully, I cracked my eyes open. The light was blinding after so long in darkness. Dr. Patel gasped and leaned closer. Mrs. Carter? His voice was quiet, stunned. I swallowed, my throat dry and raw from disuse. With all the strength I could muster, I raised a trembling finger to my lips. Please, I rasped, my voice barely a whisper. Don't tell anyone. Dr. Patel's shock turned to concern. Mrs. Carter, this is wonderful news. Your husband will be. No, I interrupted, gripping his wrist weakly. My husband, he did this to me. Dr. Patel's eyes darkened. What are you saying? I took a shaky breath. Ryan and my assistant, Madison, they cut my brakes. They're waiting for me to die so they can take my money. I heard them talking. He studied my face, his brows furrowing. Mrs. Carter, I need you to be very certain about what you're saying. These are serious accusations. I know, I whispered, but I heard them. I know the truth. And if Ryan finds out I'm awake, he'll try again. Dr. Patel glanced at the door, then back at me. His hesitation made my stomach twist. Would he believe me? After a long moment, he nodded. I'll continue reporting no change in your condition. But we need to involve the authorities. Not yet, I begged. Ryan has friends in the police department. If I go to them without evidence, they'll dismiss me, or worse, tip him off. I need proof first. His jaw tightened. You're in real danger, Mrs. Carter. I know, I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. Will you help me? Dr. Patel exhaled, then gave a firm nod. I'll keep you safe, but we have to move carefully. Just then, footsteps approached. I shut my eyes, sinking back into stillness as the door opened. Ryan's voice filled the room, smooth and controlled. Any changes, doctor? No significant changes, Mr. Carter. Dr. Patel responded, his voice steady. I could hear the disappointment in Ryan's sigh. My time was running out. I had to find a way to prove the truth, before it was too late. The next few days were agonizing. I remained motionless, pretending to be unaware while Ryan continued his visits, always putting on the act of a grieving husband when the nurses were around. But the moment he was alone with me, his mask would drop. You always have to do things the hard way, don't you, Olivia? He muttered one afternoon. Sitting beside my bed, I could feel him watching me. His presence suffocating. Couldn't just die in the accident like you were supposed to. He sighed dramatically, leaning back in his chair. You know, none of this would have happened if you had just appreciated what you had. He mused. If you had treated me like a husband instead of an accessory. But no, you had to keep working. Keep growing your little empire. While I stood there as nothing more than Olivia Carter's husband. My skin crawled as he reached out and took my hand. I fought the overwhelming urge to yank it away. Well, I suppose I should thank you. He continued. Your condition has everyone so sympathetic. Poor Ryan, they all say. No one questions me taking over your business decisions. Your empire is already starting to become mine. I forced my body to remain still as he placed my hand back on the bed carelessly. Vanessa is much better suited to be my wife anyway. He added casually. She understands a woman's role. And she's 10 years younger than you. The moment he left, I let a single tear slip down my cheek. How had I been so blind? Had this resentment always been there, hidden beneath his charm? Or had it grown over time, festering in the shadows of our marriage? The next day, a commotion outside my room made my pulse quicken. I told you, you're not authorized to visit her anymore. Ryan snapped. I worked with Olivia for 5 years. A familiar voice argued. I just want to see how she's doing. Mark, my operations manager, my most trusted employee. She's exactly the same as she was last week, unconscious. Unresponsive, Ryan said, his tone filled with fake sorrow. The doctors say there's little hope. Then what's the harm in letting me see her? Mark pressed. A tense pause. Then, begrudgingly, Ryan relented. Fine, 10 minutes. But this is the last time. The door opened, and Mark stepped inside. He approached the bed hesitantly. Hey, Olivia, he said softly. It's Mark. His voice was warm, full of concern, different from Ryan's cold indifference. I wished more than anything that I could respond. I don't know if you can hear me. He continued, but things aren't going well at the company. Ryan is making big changes. Selling properties, firing people you've had for years. I tried to stop him. But, he says he has power of attorney now. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Mark gasped. Olivia, did you just? He fell silent as the door swung open. Time's up, Ryan said coldly. I could hear the new determination in Mark's voice as he replied. I'll find out the truth. Olivia, I promise. 3 weeks later, I stood at the entrance of Carter Luxury Motors. Leaning on a cane but standing tall. The building looked different somehow, brighter. Full of possibility. My empire had nearly been stolen from me. But I had fought back. Mark stood beside me, his expression one of quiet pride. Are you ready? He asked. I took a deep breath. More than ready. Inside, the employees, many of whom had been loyal to me for years, stopped what they were doing. Their eyes widened in shock and relief. Mrs. Carter, one of the receptionists gasped. Rushing forward, we didn't know you were coming in today. I thought it was time. I said with a smile. Time to come home. As I addressed my employees, I made a promise. Carter Luxury Motors was back in my hands. And together, we would rebuild stronger than before. Ryan and Madison had been found guilty on all counts. Ryan was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Madison to 15 years. Justice had been served. But the most important thing I had gained wasn't revenge, it was clarity. Clarity about what mattered, who mattered. Mark, Sarah, and Jake had become my family. My true allies. That night, as I stood on my new home's balcony, Sarah joined me. What now? She asked. I looked out at the city. my heart lighter than it had been in years. Forward, I said simply. Just forward. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, justice, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to Life Stories for more incredible real-life tales. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.